BEP Meet Events, bringing school leaders across Birmingham together to share and learn from and with each other.
Right, morning everyone, and I'm just wondering about your little conversation about logic and numbers. You're not a maths teacher by trade, are you?
No, I'm not.
Because if you are, I was going to offer you a job. We need maths teachers. So I'm Wendy Tomes. I'm head teacher of Sydney Stringer Academy. We're a multi-academy trust. We are also a skit and a teaching school. And I stand here quite humbly in front of you today because I've been in your position many times where I've listened to other head teachers talk. And sometimes I sit there and think, yeah, we do that, I know that. But always I get something from it. And actually, I would say that most of the things that we do and we've done at Sydney Stringer are ideas that we've stolen from events just like this. And I always go away thinking, even if I've got one or two snippets of things that make me think and items that can lead to discussions in our senior team, it's been worth it. So today I'm going to talk about EAL, and I've talked lots of times about school improvement and how we went on our journey from good to outstanding, but I haven't actually ever done a discrete session on EAL. And it made me think about what we've done, and it's been quite an interesting journey for me as well, doing this. So, if I just press the button, has it gone to the next slide? What am I doing here? I just need someone to show me what to do. All right, okay, I can see it now, it's okay. I can use these things, by the way. Nope. Is that it? Right, nope. Oh, that one. Nope. I'm glad it wasn't me. What did you do there so I know what to do next time? That one, right, okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the context because I'm sure you're not interested in how well we do, but just to say we're probably very similar to many of you in that we're a city centre school. We don't like the term inner city, it sounds sort of negative. So we're a city centre school. We've got the highest deprivation in Coventry and lots of EAL students. Our census this year said 94% and last year was slightly lower. And high free school meals. But for us, EAL is a massive thing because most of our school is EAL, so everything we do practically is geared towards how are we going to get our EAL students to make outstanding progress and to leave school with a good destination. So everything we do is EAL. So I can't possibly talk about that in half an hour. So I thought about maybe focusing a little more on what we do with our hardest to engage EAL. Because for us, it's the newly arrived EAL that have caused us the biggest challenge. And when I first became head teacher at Sydney Stringer in 2009, I was so lucky because I had a whole year in post to plan for the opening of the academy, luxury in those days. And I knew it was an issue. The provision was good, but we wanted to get it to outstanding. And suddenly we had a huge influx of Roma Gypsy students. And they were really, really tough. And so I'm going to spend a little bit talking about what have we done to engage our most hard to engage EAL students. And I think we've done a lot when I look back on it. And you can read that for yourselves. We're doing well. We got outstanding and we're always in the top 10% for progress and top 5% for maths. So we're doing well. We've got credentials. But let me talk more about what we've done. In terms of what we've done, the first thing that we had to do was to make sure that we got the ethos of the school right. And that is important. That's probably more important than any strategy that you do. And so what we've done is we've made sure that the staff in our school realise how important it is to be responsible for EAL students as a staff. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But when we appoint teachers, it starts off with recruitment, because it's hard to recruit staff. And I often listen to head teachers moaning about, oh, I can't get any maths teachers and I can't get any of these teachers. And they moan, and I think, well, if you were selling, I wouldn't be buying either. You know, be positive, do something proactive to make your school a wonderful place to come. And so when staff come to us, we say to them, looking after you and valuing you as staff is really, really important to us. We'll go the extra mile, but in return, it's going to be tough here. You are going to have to do everything you possibly can with the children that you're working with to make sure they succeed. You're going to have to be one of those people that never give up. You're going to have to go the extra mile, and it's going to be tough. But in return, it will be a great career and a great school for you to work in. So it's creating that ethos. It's about, for us, integration and not segregation. And I'm just going to pick up on that in a minute in terms of what we're doing. because this is what it was like 6 years ago. There were low expectations of EAL department. Our EAL department was actually a little fortress. It was staffed by about 6 teachers and quite a lot of learning support assistants. Most of the teachers actually were teachers that had been moved from other departments because they were poor teachers and no one was willing to take them on. There was no capability competency. If you were a weak teacher, put them into the EAL department because then they can't do so much damage. That was really what happened. And the EAL department became their own little enclave. And when students arrived, they would go into the EAL department and they would stay there. And they would stay there depending on one of 2 things. Right? First of all, how well behaved they were. If they were well behaved, they could stay there for a long time because the teachers liked teaching them. And if they were naughty, then actually they weren't EAL, they were learning support. So off they went to the learning support department, who would then question and say, no, they're not, they're EAL. And I can't tell you how many hours I spent mediating between EAL and learning support. And then the other condition was, and I'm not joking here, was how much they smelt. Because if they smelt a lot, then they didn't want them in the EAL base, and off they went to mainstream lessons. And whenever they did go to mainstream lessons, it was always the bottom sets. We set rigidly, it works for us, it might not work for you, but if you EAL, it was considered that you certainly couldn't be bright because you EAL and you went into the bottom sets. And that was dreadful. And I just thought we cannot continue like this. We are not doing our students a good service. And we've got some fantastic newly arrived students. We've got some fantastic EAL students. And we're really letting some of them down because some of them can fly really quickly. You know, some of those can get the highest grades, make outstanding progress from whatever their starting point, if we get them into mainstream with our really good teachers as quickly as possible. We had a load of translators, and that's what they did, translate. The Roma Gypsy students, when they arrived, really found it tough. And they found it tough because, A, they didn't understand anybody, and B, they'd never been to school before, most of them. Not all of them, and I am stereotyping here, but a lot of them had really not been to school, and their parents were really hard to engage because they hadn't been to school, and they didn't value education, and they didn't understand us either. I can remember one day I watched about 10 of them climbing the fence out the school, and I got them and I said, you know, that fence isn't to keep you in, it's to keep people out. If you don't like it here, then, you know, you can imagine what I told them. I can't repeat it on film. So I just thought we've got to do something. And the staff in the EAL department, if I just say, you're head teachers, many of you, they were probably the hardest staff to manage. Yeah, you know, they knew their rights and they were absolutely adamant that what we were doing was the right thing, and it was their little baby, and it was going to have to continue like that forever because EAL was a priority. And so I commissioned a review, and I asked somebody, actually somebody from Birmingham, I can't remember her name now, but she was wonderful. And she came in and she did a thorough review of her EAL, and she confirmed what I passionately believed, which was that EAL is the responsibility of all the staff in all the school, teaching staff and support staff. And what she said made me really think, and I went away and I came back and I said, we need to disband the EAL department. Let's just get rid of it. And actually, it caused me a huge amount of work in managing the staff, and managing the mainstream staff was probably almost as challenging as managing the EAL staff, because the mainstream staff were going, how are you going to expect me to teach the class with those in there? They don't speak any English. I'm not going to have time to sort them out and teach them and sort out the rest of the class. It was tough. But we have come such a long way, because now I look back and I think it was so the right thing to do. You know, now it's made such a difference, the progress those students make, and they make progress much quicker than they would ever have made before, all being hidden away in a discrete EAL department. I've been through that. Oh, just one thing about our Roma students as well, because those, if you're interested in Roma students, if you're from a school with a high percentage of Roma students, we've got a wonderful senior leader called Tony Ford, and he's led on this. And he's spoken at a couple of conferences, and he always gets very good reviews. He can speak for an hour on this and all our strategies in much more detail, and I'd be more than happy to give you his details. But I think we're quite proud of what we've done there. But the biggest thing about our Roma Gypsy students was probably engaging the parents, because once you get the parents, it's easier to get the kids. and also starting to create positive role models, because as soon as some become successful, you've then got role models for the other. And the biggest issue for us was getting them into school, like I said, and keeping them in school. They truanted like nobody's business. I mean, it was games some days, chasing them around the Hillfields area where we're based. I've been asked this morning to talk about strategies we've done for 4 areas. So just conscious of time, I'm going to have to be really quick, and I can't possibly tell you all of them. One of them was use of support staff. Like I said, our EAL department, we disbanded, so all the teachers were assigned to core curriculum areas. The learning support assistants, or TAs as we called them in those days, were then attached to learning support. And so that then became a whole school issue. But we did have some translators, and we changed their role, because translators, actually what we wanted them to do was to be responsible, lock, stock and barrel, for caring, monitoring, coaching, supporting, liaising with families of our most hard to engage EAL students. So we changed their role completely. We don't call them translators. They might translate. That's now a small part of their job. They have performance management targets based on the progress of the EAL students they're working with. Right? So we might assign them 20 students, and they've got to make sure that they do everything to make sure those students make outstanding progress. That is much better use of someone. We pay them the same. They've just got a different title, and they do different things, but they're still translating. We said to all the staff that you are now responsible for EAL students and looking at your teaching and learning strategies. But obviously we need some experts, and we did have experts. And actually some of our EAL team were really very skilled. And so we kept an EAL leader. She didn't like it at first in that she wasn't going to be based in the base all the time. We actually put her into our modern languages department, and she taught a bit of modern languages, but she still kept an eye on our EAL students, and actually she's done some fantastic work. For the first year, actually, we changed our EAL department and called it World Languages. Didn't make any difference. It was a different title. They were still doing the same poor things. We appointed someone to lead on accelerated reading. And actually that person's a support member of staff, and she does a cracking job. She does all the recording, she coordinates all the intervention. She doesn't cost much in terms of, money at your budget, but she has such an impact. And she's line managed by a head of literacy. We wanted somebody to lead literacy that wasn't an English teacher, because we thought that might send out a strong message, but actually the person we appointed happened to be an English teacher, but that was just by the by. But we've now got literacy, accelerated reader and EAL leaders, but they work with all the staff. If you come to Sydney Stringer and you ask any mainstream teacher, they will know that they're responsible for making sure that their EAL students are doing really well. We also have non-teaching house heads. I'm sure many of you will have that. But actually, we also made EAL and literacy and reading a bit of a responsibility for those. So the house heads actually coordinate the accelerated reader programme within their house groups. And so they are responsible in tutor time for making sure that once a week the accelerated reading programme is happening. And they also look at the progress of the reading, and then we give them points and we build it into competitions. So we've got a lot of staff that we've got involved. In terms of the senior leadership team, we don't have someone who leads on EAL, but we have somebody who leads on community engagement. So she does quite a lot of work, part of which is to engage with the parents. But we did, in the first 2 years, appoint somebody, the guy, Tony, I mentioned, who's great at this, to lead on attendance. And that in turn led him to decide that he actually needed to set up an EAL focus group. I'm not going to talk long about the use of data and tracking, because I'm sure that this is something that you're all up to date with and familiar with and is going on in your schools. But what I like about what works for us is we've got very, very good seating plans. Every teacher has to have a seating plan, and on that seating plan is absolutely explicit who the EAL students are. And within that data, you can see how well they're doing, what their reading age is, and all the progress data. We measure reading ages twice a year. We used to just focus on accelerated reader. Now we're using the Ruth Miskin phonics programme as well, because for some of them that's much better. We're using our Year 9 students to help monitor and coach some of the weaker Year 7 students. with reading difficulties. And we think that what we're doing actually has contributed to raising the reading ages, but still a long way to go. This is crucial. Literacy, because EAL isn't just about what you do with your small, hard to engage group of newly arrived students. Right? Our 150 one year, last year it was 50. It will always be high for us. We're full, we're oversubscribed, but we still had 50 new admissions because the nature of our students is that you're always going to get movement because many of our families come and go. And it's still a massive, massive challenge. So we create smaller English classes and we overstaff them when we can. We have full-time learning support assistants in the English department, and they really get to know the English department very well. I don't know if any of you are members of Pixel, but actually we found that invaluable. We don't subscribe. If you don't know what Pixel is, it's hard to explain actually, but it's a big national organisation that came out of the London Challenge. And you subscribe to it, and with what you get then are some fantastic resources and quite a few conferences that you and your key leaders can go to share resources and ideas. And we pick the bits that we like. We don't like all of Pixel, and we don't like our man coming saying, give me your data, because I'm not giving it to him. But actually, the resources for that have been fantastic for literacy. We use iPads because actually, most of our students, we give them iPads on a scheme where they have to pay very, very little to have them, but they can take them home. There are some fantastic apps for literacy on the iPads, and that's really making a difference to some of our students. We've personalised the curriculum. If you're an EAL student, you get lots more English. You get loads of English. You get more and more English until you can get up to your right reading age. And we're unashamedly naughty in that we might take them out of MFL, although the EBAC is starting to have an impact in what we do. And sometimes we've even been known to take them out of PE. So, you know, we do break a few rules, but we've got to get them reading properly and writing properly and their literacy skills to make sure that they can access the rest of the curriculum. And you can see the rest of the things that we do there. I'm just conscious of time, so I want to just leave myself a bit of time to talk about parental engagement, because this has been massive. So we have our 2 senior leaders that work with our Roma families. And we found the secret to engaging our Roma families: food, right? They love coming in if you offer them food. And actually, the second secret was, don't meet them in school. Meet them outside of school. So we hired a room in the community centre and we started engaging with them. And what we found out quite quickly was they didn't like being told off. Because basically, in the first years, all we were doing was saying, you know, knack, 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 knack. You need to do this, you need to do that. So they came and it was a really negative experience. So we decided that what we would do is we would get them in and we would build them up so that we got a relationship with them. And we would make them feel good about meeting with us and make them feel that they were important. We offered them free English classes and we tried to keep them involved as much as we can and restrain, because it was very tempting ourselves, from telling them off as much. And then the other thing that we did that's had a massive impact was working with our feeder primary schools. Because one of our feeder primary schools is 4 form entry. They're all big form entries. We have 5 main feeder primary schools. And they've got nearly a third of their intake is now Roma Gypsy. They're coming up to us. They're the same. They're the brothers and sisters of the children that we've got. And so we decided that as schools, as 5 schools, we would work together. And so we set up our forum for engaging our Roma Gypsy families. And that's had a massive impact because the families know that there is consistency between the schools. And we visit the students, Sydney Stringer staff go to the primary schools and visit the Roma Gypsy group that are coming up if we think that's appropriate. And so they get to know us before they come up. And that's made a big difference. We've celebrated as much success as we can, and that's really worked. And I think where we've got to now is we've got a very different relationship with our Roma families than we ever had before. And actually, we can say things to them now that we couldn't say before. So our attendance and punctuality is improved. We've got much better engagement at parents' evenings. We don't need the interventions that we had before, like special assemblies, and maybe we don't do as much of getting positive role models in because the students said, actually, we've got role models here. And it was funny because Tony Ford, this guy I mentioned a couple of times now, he says, I'm much braver now. He says, I can go up to the parents and challenge them in a way that I couldn't before. And he said, I thought about, why can I do this? And he said, it's a bit like, you know, going on your first date. When you go on your first date, you don't start telling someone off. You only start the nagging bit when you really get to know them. And so that's what we've done. We've got to know them. Now we can do the nagging. But the Roma Gypsy are just one small part. But for us, if you talk about EAL, it's the newly arrived students that don't speak any English that really have made us think about what are we going to do to get them to the same levels? What are we going to do to get them to make that outstanding progress? It isn't hiding them away in a little department full of teachers that nobody else would take on. It's about getting them into lessons as quickly as possible, mixing with students who do speak English. And it's about skilling up our teachers to be able to teach them and to have the strategies to teach them. We have done a massive amount on teaching and learning, right? We have teach meets like you today, and we might focus, we've had some where we focused on engaging students in terms of raising levels of literacy. We talk about it all the time. We have teaching and learning consultants that provide advice to other staff. It's part of our induction programme, because it's what goes on in the classroom with those EAL students, as well as all the wonderful support and the Czech Roma support workers. That all counts, but it's what goes on in the classroom that has been, I think, for us, the thing that's made the biggest difference. But our intake is always changing, and we're always having to review what we do, and we can always be better, and I'm sure I'm going to pick up a few ideas today. But it's been a journey for us, but I think of all the things I look back on and think, what did we do that made the biggest difference? Disbanding the EAL department, without a doubt. Thank you.
BEP Meet Events, bringing school leaders across Birmingham together to share and learn from and with each other.